It's been 25 years since the last comprehensive update to internet regulations. That's why Facebook supports updated regulations on the internet's most pressing challenges, like reforming Section 230 to set standards for the way large tech companies enforce rules about content. Learn more at about.fb.com/regulations. Good morning, I'm Anna Palmer.
And I'm Jake Sherman.
And welcome to the Daily Punch, brought to you by Punchbowl News. It's Tuesday, September 14th, 2021. Let's get into the mix. Here are your Washington headlines of the day. Number 1, the gulf between moderates and progressives on Joe Biden's agenda is widening. Number 2, we've got the latest on reconciliation. And number 3, Secretary of State Antony Blinken is back on the hot seat today. All right, Jake, let's get into it. We have been talking about this divide in the Democratic Party for quite a while between the moderates and the progressives, but it's actually starting to potentially have an impact on Joe Biden's agenda and actually passing some of these big ticket items that they are counting on before the end of the year.
Yeah, I'd say a few things here. Number one, we spoke yesterday to a bunch of people, but most notably Bernie Sanders and John Tester. Two things to note here. John Tester said he wants 100% of the $3.5 trillion reconciliation package paid for. That's not happening right now in any way, shape, or form. Now, listen, I would imagine that he could walk that back or whatever, but it just shows that moderates are in a different place than progressives on this. And then most notably, Bernie Sanders said to us yesterday, and he's been very upfront about this and very firm about in his belief that the reconciliation bill should be no less than $3.5 trillion. Now, we've been over this a million times. Joe Manchin is not at all for a $3.5 trillion bill, says he won't vote for it. Kyrsten Sinema says the same thing. But, it's the rubber's meeting the road now. And I just think that every day that goes on, and we're going to be covering this intensively, that every day that goes on, we see a bigger kind of gulf, a bigger gap between those two sides in when it comes to the price tag and the road to getting to the end of the reconciliation process.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things that's very instructive here, though, is we talk a lot about Joe Manchin, right? The media, in particular, is laser focused on him, and rightfully so. He is clearly the tip of the spear for moderates. But what I think is interesting when you get a man like John Tester, the Democrat from Montana, you also see that it's not just Joe Manchin who is out there on his own saying 3.5 trillion or 3 trillion is too much, right? There are other Senate Democrats who are very squarely in that same camp that have issues in terms of they just don't want to blow up the deficit more than it already is, and they want to find ways to try to force this package to be as smaller than where a lot of the progressives are.
Yeah, and that's and remember, 3-seat majority in the House, 0-seat majority in the Senate, and again, that's the government that Joe Biden has, the government that Democrats have, and one they have to contend with.
All right, let's move on to the number 2 story of the morning, the endgame for reconciliation. We are projecting a bit in today's Punchbowl News AM about the endgame for Democrats' $3.5 trillion reconciliation package. This might not be something that Speaker Nancy Pelosi and Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer enjoy, but we have a lot of thoughts about how things are potentially finishing up.
Yeah, so a lot to go over here. We'll keep it brief. We don't want to go over everything here. You should and could and must subscribe to Punchbowl News at punchbowl.news. So I guess the main crux of what we're trying to say here this morning is does Nancy Pelosi first of all, does she try to pass this bill and then hold on to it until she has a deal with Senate Democrats about what the bill will look like? So that's the big question here, because she says she's going to pass this thing by September 20, basically by the end of the month, in addition to the infrastructure package. And keep in mind, the House is not even back in session yet. They come back into session a week from yesterday, so next Monday. So that's the main crux of what we're trying to say here is how does Nancy Pelosi, how do they balance this difficult scenario in which she's going to have to pass a reconciliation package at $3.5 trillion, and then Senate Democrats are not really for it. So that becomes really tricky for Pelosi and for House Democrats and for Senate Democrats and for the prospects of Joe Biden's package. And remember, we think, I mean, based on our reporting at this point, and we're not going over the government funding today. Government funding is a gigantic,
a looming issue for everybody in Washington here.
Exactly, a gigantic mess. But we think that reconciliation could go into November. It could go into November and December. It could be a year-end proposition, something you and I and Brez have been saying for some time here. Could last a while. So anyway, that's how we see that playing out.
One of the things I think is important, so where you look at kind of reading the tea leaves, which is what we're doing. We're looking at people's body language. We're looking at just the substance, what they have to do to get it done in terms of the sequencing, in terms of the timing for committees. You know, the House has been working through its package. We've been, kind of watching that very closely last night in Punchbowl News PM for our premium members. They got some news just about how tough it is around some of these provisions around drug pricing and some of the issues where the moderates are really having some issues there. But I do think Pelosi, she sent a Dear Colleague out last night praising her committees for finishing their work by that September 15th deadline. But what was interesting to me is this counseling of patience and unity. I mean, she is really trying to shepherd this massive, massive package with deep divisions, as we talked about at the top, between progressives and moderates, but is trying to keep her members in line. And I think she knows she needs to, because once they come back, they're going to be peppered every day by us and by others about where they are on this bill and are they going to vote for it and what's going to happen and the sequencing. And so you see her trying to kind of shore up support within the caucus even before they come back.
That's right. And it's not going to be, this is going to be there's just going to be a lot of, how do I say this gently? There's going to be a lot of anxiety and angst about just what the end game is here. So stay tuned.
It's probably been about 25 years since you've heard that sound, but that's how long it's been since lawmakers passed comprehensive internet regulations. That's why Facebook supports updated regulations on the internet's most pressing challenges, like passing the Honest Ads Act and Deter Act to update elections rules and combat foreign interference. Meaningful reform of Section 230, bipartisan action to break the deadlock on federal privacy legislation, and clear rules on data portability. Facebook is not waiting for regulations. They're continuing to make progress on key issues. To keep moving forward, we need universal guidelines that set the standards for large tech companies and promote innovation. Learn more about Facebook's progress and see what's next at about.fb.com/regulations. Support for Daily Punch comes from 3M, from helping drive vaccine and therapy development with advanced purification technologies to developing an adjuvant that helps boost vaccine effectiveness. The research scientists at 3M are delivering innovative healthcare solutions to help us today and prepare us to better tackle what's next. Learn more at 3m.com/improving lives. 3M Science, applied to life. All right, and let's move on to the number 3 story of the morning. Afghanistan. Senate Democrats are readying a defense for Secretary of State Antony Blinken. He was up on Capitol Hill yesterday. He testified about the chaotic U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan, Jake, and it was not pretty, to say the least. I mean, the headlines alone from yesterday in the roundup that we provided and looked at, it goes everything from, Reuters saying Blinken defends Afghan withdrawal at testy U.S. congressional hearing, to the Post headline saying Blinken clashes with Republican lawmakers over Afghanistan withdrawal. Unlikely that round 2 is going to be any less hostile, because this morning he'll be up in front of the Senate.
Yeah, that's right. I think that here's what's worth pointing out here for us is two things. Number one, to me, the most notable thing was what Chris Murphy, senator from Connecticut, Democratic senator from Connecticut, said to me and Brez last night, which is the exact quote is. Well, let me wait while I pull it up here.
He's a Connecticution, just so everybody knows. Jake says that is a real word. I'm still skeptical.
Yeah, well, I've been saying it for years, so I hope it's real. This is Chris Murphy to Brez and I last night. Democrats' sort of reluctance to defend the administration is a gift to Republicans and war cheerleaders who want this country to forget about the disaster of the last 2 decades. That's Chris Murphy to us last night. And then there's Marco Rubio, who said that he hopes that Blinken doesn't try to spin that the intelligence didn't support a chaotic withdrawal. So I think you're going to see a little bit harsher of a tone here from Senate Republicans than you saw from House Republicans, at least because Senate Republicans are much more focused on foreign policy than House Republicans are, just by dint of their responsibility in the Senate, and they're just much deeper into the foreign policy realm.
All right, something to watch today. Also a reminder that it is California's gubernatorial recall election tonight. There is plenty of great reporting on the ground in the Golden State. And as always, we try to throw our colleagues some love. So we always suggest a subscription to the LA Times and a follow of Politico's Carla Marinucci and Jeremy White, as well as the Post's David Weigel, and of course, the LA Times' Mark Baraback. They have got you covered on what is happening there. We will be reading them all night tonight. And with that, thank you so much for listening. Please leave us a rating and review. You can also subscribe to Punchbowl News at punchbowl.news. Have a great day and stay safe.